The crack of dawn painted the Montana sky in shades of amber and gold, as Olivia Blackwell wiped her weathered hands on her apron, stepping onto the porch of her small homestead for what felt like the 1000th morning. It was September of 1876, and the morning dew still clung to the tall grass surrounding her modest home, the same home she had shared with Thomas for 6 years before he rode east with promises of returning with enough money to expand their ranch. 2 years had passed since then, with only 3 letters to show for his absence, the last one arriving 8 months ago. "You're a fool, Liv," she muttered to herself, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear as she squinted at the horizon. The coffee in her tin mug had gone cold, just as it did most mornings when she stood vigil, watching and waiting for the silhouette of her husband to materialize on the dusty trail leading to their home. At 26, Olivia felt like both a young woman and an old soul. The homestead was hers now, truly hers, since the bank had sent notice that Thomas had forfeited his claim by abandonment. She had managed to keep it running with her own 2 hands, the help of neighbors when they could spare it, and sheer stubborn will. "Mornin', Miss Olivia," came a voice from the side of the house, startling her from her thoughts. She turned to see Harry Miller leading his chestnut mare toward the water trough. His 6-foot frame was lean but strong, shoulders broad beneath his worn cotton shirt. His Stetson was pulled low, but she could still see his eyes, green as summer grass, watching her with a look she'd grown familiar with, a mixture of concern and something else she wasn't ready to name. "Mr. Miller," she acknowledged with a nod. "Early start today. Cattle drive coming through. Thought I'd offer my services as an extra hand." He removed his hat, revealing sun-bleached brown hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck. At 30 years old, Harry had the weathered look of a man who'd spent his life under the open sky. Olivia hesitated. Pride was all she had left, but pride didn't fix fences or round up stray cattle. "I'd be obliged," she finally said, stepping back into the house to fetch him a cup of coffee. When she returned, he was leaning against the porch railing, gaze fixed on the same horizon she'd been watching. "Still waiting on him?" he asked quietly, accepting the steaming cup she offered. "Old habits," she replied, the familiar ache in her chest a little duller than it had been the day before and the day before that. "Been 2 years now. I reckon if Thomas was coming back, he'd have done it by now." Harry took a sip of his coffee, seeming to carefully consider his words. Some men don't know a good thing when they have it. Others. His eyes met hers. Others would give anything for a chance at what he threw away. The air between them shifted, heavy with words unsaid. Olivia had known Harry since he'd ridden into the territory 3 years ago, taking work as a ranch hand at the neighboring Montgomery spread. He'd been a friend to both her and Thomas, but in the months after Thomas left, Harry had been the one to check in on her, to offer help without making her feel like a charity case. "I should get to my chores," she said, breaking the moment. "Those fence posts on the north pasture won't fix themselves." "I'll saddle up the horses," Harry offered, finishing his coffee. "We can ride out together." As they worked side by side that morning, Olivia found herself studying Harry when he wasn't looking. The way his strong hands worked the wire with practiced ease, how he spoke softly to the horses, the respectful way he addressed her, never with pity, always as an equal. It struck her that in the 2 years of Thomas's absence, Harry had been more present than her husband had been, even when they shared a home. By midday, the Montana sun beat down mercilessly. They had repaired nearly half the fence line, and Olivia wiped sweat from her brow as she reached for her canteen. "We should take a break," Harry suggested, leading his horse to the shade of a lone cottonwood tree. "No sense in getting heat stroke." They sat beneath the tree's sprawling branches, a respectable distance between them as they ate the simple lunch Olivia had packed: biscuits, jerky, and apples. "Tell me something, Olivia," Harry said after a while, his voice thoughtful. "What keeps you on that porch every morning?" She considered his question, turning the apple core in her hands. At first it was hope, then it was habit. Now, She sighed. I'm not sure anymore. Maybe I'm just waiting for something to change. Harry nodded, his gaze distant. Change has a funny way of happening when you least expect it. He looked at her then, his expression earnest. You deserve better than waiting on a ghost, Olivia. And what would you know about what I deserve, Mr. Miller? She asked, not unkindly. I know that you're the strongest woman I've ever met. I know that you've kept this place running when most would have given up. I know that your laugh, rare as it is these days, is about the finest sound in these territories. He said it matter-of-factly, as though stating simple truths rather than sentiments that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. Olivia looked away, uncomfortable with how his words warmed her. We should get back to work, she said, rising to her feet. As the days turned into weeks, Harry became a constant presence at the Blackwell homestead. He never imposed, always asking permission before helping. But he was there fixing the leak in her roof before the autumn rains, helping to bring in the last of her garden harvest, riding the property lines to check for strays. One evening in early October, as the first chill of winter threatened the air, Olivia invited Harry to stay for supper, something she'd done with increasing frequency. They sat across from each other at her small table, lamplight casting a warm glow over the simple meal of venison stew and cornbread. Got word from town today, Harry said between bites. There's talk of the railroad expanding this way next year. That would change things, Olivia mused, considering the implications. Might be good for business, getting cattle to market easier. Might bring more people too, Harry added. More opportunities. A comfortable silence settled between them until Harry cleared his throat. There's something else I heard in town, he said, his tone careful. Station master got a telegram. Man matching Thomas's description was seen in St. Louis. Seems he's taken up with a wealthy widow there. Olivia's spoon clattered against her bowl. She'd suspected as much, that Thomas had found greener pastures, but hearing it confirmed still stung. Not because she still loved him, she realized with surprise, but because of the betrayal. I'm sorry, Olivia, Harry said softly. I thought you should know. She nodded, blinking back unexpected tears. Thank you for telling me. I suppose I needed to hear it. Gives me a reason to stop waiting. Harry reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers but not quite touching. If it helps any, I think he's the biggest fool west of the Mississippi. A laugh escaped her lips, surprising them both. West of the Mississippi, that's awfully specific, Mr. Miller. His smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. Well, I can't speak for the fools east of it. Haven't traveled that far. That night, after Harry had gone and Olivia was alone with her thoughts, she realized something had shifted inside her. The news about Thomas should have devastated her, but instead she felt as though a weight had been lifted. For 2 years, she'd been in limbo, not a wife, not a widow, just waiting. Now, at least, she knew. The next morning, for the first time in 2 years, Olivia didn't step out onto the porch to watch the horizon. Instead, she set about her chores with a newfound energy, making plans and thinking about her future for the first time in a long while. When Harry arrived later that afternoon, leading a wagon filled with firewood for the coming winter, he noticed the change immediately. You look different today, he commented as he stacked logs by her woodshed. Feel different too, she admitted, passing him another armload. I've decided it's time to stop living in the past. Harry paused, studying her face. That's good to hear. I'm thinking of expanding the vegetable garden come spring, she continued. Maybe get a few more chickens. The eggs sell well in town. Sounds like you're making plans. I am, she confirmed with a nod. Long overdue ones. As they worked together, Olivia found herself watching Harry, the way the muscles in his arms flexed as he lifted the heavy logs, the careful precision with which he stacked them, the gentle way he handled everything associated with her home. She'd been so caught up in waiting for Thomas that she'd nearly missed what was right in front of her, a good, honest man who had been there all along. As winter descended on the Montana territory, blanketing the land in pristine white, Olivia's relationship with Harry deepened. He checked on her daily during the worst storms, breaking trails through the snow between their properties, bringing extra supplies and staying to share meals. They talked for hours by the firelight about their childhoods, their dreams, books they'd read, places they'd like to see. One night, as a blizzard howled outside, Harry told her about his past, how he'd lost his parents young, been raised by an uncle who taught him ranching, and spent his early 20s drifting from territory to territory, never finding a place that felt like home until he'd settled in Montana. "What made you stay here?" she asked, curled in a quilt near the fire, her stocking feet tucked beneath her. Harry poked at the embers, sending sparks up the chimney. "Felt right, I guess. The land spoke to me, and then—" He glanced at her. There were other reasons to stay. The implication hung in the air between them, neither acknowledging it directly. As February turned to March and the first hints of spring began to emerge, Olivia realized that she had gone entire days without thinking of Thomas. Instead, her thoughts increasingly turned to Harry, wondering when he would arrive each day, looking forward to their conversations, finding excuses to be near him. It was on the first truly warm day of the season that everything changed. They had ridden out to check on new calves in the east pasture, and on their return, stopped to rest by the creek that ran through Olivia's property. The water bubbled merrily over smooth stones. Winter's ice fully retreated. Harry dismounted first, then turned to help Olivia down from her horse. His hands at her waist were strong and sure, and when her feet touched the ground, he didn't immediately step away. They stood there, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. "Olivia," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I've been wanting to say something to you for a long time, but it never seemed right." Her heart hammered in her chest. "What is it?" His hands remained at her waist, gentle but firm. "I've watched you wait on that porch for a man who didn't deserve you. I've seen your strength and your heart, and He paused, swallowing hard. "I want to be the one who comes home to you, the one who never leaves." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. For so long, she'd been defined by waiting, by absence. The possibility of something real, something present, was both terrifying and exhilarating. "Harry," she whispered, her hands moving to rest on his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. "I don't know if I'm ready. I'll wait," he said simply. "However long you need. I just wanted you to know where I stand." He started to step back, but Olivia surprised herself by gripping his shirt, keeping him close. "No," she said, "no more waiting for either of us." When their lips met, it was like coming home to a place she'd never been before. His kiss was tender at first, then deepened with a passion that awakened something long dormant within her. His arms encircled her completely, and for the first time in years, Olivia felt truly safe. They broke apart, both breathing heavily, foreheads touching. Harry's smile was bright enough to rival the spring sun. "I've been wanting to do that since the first time I saw you hanging laundry and cursing at the wind for tangling your sheets." Olivia laughed, remembering that day 3 years ago when Harry had first ridden up to introduce himself as the new hand at the Montgomery ranch. That long," he confirmed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Even when Thomas was here, though I never would have acted on it then." Her smile faltered slightly at the mention of her husband. "I don't know what this makes me. I'm still married in the eyes of the law, even if he's abandoned me." "We'll figure it out," Harry assured her. "There are ways to handle these things. What matters is what's in your heart, Olivia." What was in her heart, she realized, was Harry. Had been for longer than she cared to admit, even to herself. As spring bloomed across the Montana territory, so did their relationship. They were careful, mindful of gossip in a small community and the complications of Olivia's marital status, but they were together whenever they could be. Harry continued helping at her homestead, but now their work was punctuated by stolen kisses and lingering touches. In late April, Harry rode to town to speak with the lawyer about Olivia's options. He returned with news that gave them both hope given Thomas's extended absence and the evidence of his new life in St. Louis. Olivia had grounds for divorce on the basis of abandonment and possibly adultery. "It won't be quick," Harry explained as they sat on her porch watching the sunset. "And it might get messy if he contests it, but the lawyer thinks you have a strong case." Olivia nodded, leaning her head against Harry's shoulder. "I never thought I'd be filing for divorce. It wasn't how I was raised to think about marriage." "I know," Harry said, his arm secure around her. "But you deserve a chance at happiness, Liv. Real happiness, not just waiting and wondering." She turned her face up to his, studying the earnest expression she'd come to love. "You make me happy, Harry Miller." His kiss was gentle, a promise. "And I intend to keep doing so for as long as you'll let me." The legal proceedings began slowly. Letters were sent to Thomas's last known address in St. Louis, notices published in newspapers there and in Montana. Weeks passed with no response, which the lawyer assured them strengthened Olivia's case for abandonment. Meanwhile, life on the homestead continued. With Harry's help, Olivia expanded her garden as planned and added to her chicken flock. They worked side by side, building something together, not just the physical improvements to the property, but a life, a partnership. By June, their relationship was an open secret in the community. Some whispered behind their hands about the propriety of it all, but most of their neighbors had witnessed Olivia's 2-year vigil and saw how she'd blossomed since Harry had become part of her life. It was on a warm evening in July that Harry asked Olivia to ride with him to his property. Though he worked primarily at the Montgomery Ranch, he had his own small homestead about 3 miles from Olivia's, a modest cabin, and a few acres he'd been slowly developing. "I haven't been out this way in a while," Olivia commented as they rode. The last time she'd visited Harry's place had been before Thomas left, when they'd all been neighbors and friends. "I've made some changes," Harry said, a hint of nervousness in his voice that piqued her curiosity. As they crested the final hill, Olivia gasped. What had once been a basic cabin with little surrounding development was now transformed. A proper barn stood beside the expanded cabin. A vegetable garden, smaller than hers but thriving, stretched to one side. A new corral held several horses, and in the distance she could see a small herd of cattle grazing. "Harry," she breathed. "When did you do all this?" "Bit by bit, over the last year or so," he replied, helping her down from her horse. "Come inside. There's more I want to show you." The interior of the cabin had been completely renovated. The single room had been expanded to include a proper bedroom, separated by a wall. The main living area featured a stone fireplace, comfortable furniture, and to Olivia's surprise, bookshelves filled with volumes. "You remembered," she said softly, running her fingers along the spines of the books. Reading had been her passion since childhood, something she'd mentioned to Harry during their long winter conversations. "I remember everything you tell me, Liv," he said, watching her explore the space. She turned to find him standing in the center of the room, hat in his hands, looking both terrified and determined. "What's all this about, Harry?" He took a deep breath. "I built this for us. For you. I know it's not as big as your place, but the land is good and there's room to expand. Or we could live at your homestead if you prefer. I don't care where, as long as we're together." Olivia's heart skipped a beat as Harry dropped to one knee before her. "I know you're still legally tied to Thomas, and I'll wait as long as it takes for that to be resolved. But I want you to know that the moment you're free, I want to make you my wife." From his pocket, he withdrew a simple gold band. "It was my mother's. I've been carrying it, waiting for the right moment." Tears filled Olivia's eyes as emotion overwhelmed her. For 2 years, she'd waited on that porch for a man who had never intended to return. Now, before her was a man offering everything she'd ever wanted: love, partnership, respect. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Harry, the moment I'm free, I'll marry you." His smile was brilliant as he slipped the ring onto her finger, not her wedding finger, not yet, but a promise nonetheless. When he rose to kiss her, Olivia felt as though her heart might burst with happiness. They spent the evening planning their future, where they would live. They decided on Olivia's larger homestead, but would keep Harry's place as well. How they would combine their livestock, what crops they would plant come spring. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the land, they sat on Harry's porch, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against him. "I never thought I'd find this again," Olivia admitted quietly. "After Thomas left, I thought that was it for me. That I'd spend my life alone, just me and this land." Harry pressed a kiss to her hair. "The first time I saw you waiting on that porch, watching the horizon, I thought to myself, that woman deserves someone who'll always come back to her. I wanted to be that man, even then." "You are that man," she assured him, tilting her face up for his kiss. "You have been all along." August brought a heat wave and unexpected news. A letter arrived from the lawyer in town. Thomas had finally responded to the divorce petition. Far from contesting it, he had signed the necessary papers and included a brief note. "Olivia, I should have done this long ago. I'm sorry for leaving you in limbo. I've found my life here in St. Louis and have remarried, though not legally, which I now aim to correct. The homestead is rightfully yours, as is your freedom. Thomas." Olivia sat on her porch now, as Harry had all but moved in reading the letter again and again, trying to process the jumble of emotions it evoked. Relief, certainly. Anger at his casual mention of remarrying while still legally bound to her, but mostly a profound sense of closure. "Are you all right?" Harry asked, joining her after finishing the evening chores. She handed him the letter. "He's agreed to everything. The lawyer says once the judge signs off, I'll be free." Harry read it quickly, his expression darkening at the mention of Thomas's new relationship, but softening as he looked at Olivia. "How do you feel about it?" "Relieved," she said honestly. "Ready to move forward with you." He sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "Then that's what we'll do." The divorce was finalized in mid-September, just as the first leaves began to turn. The day the final papers arrived, Harry rode into town and returned with the local preacher, Pastor Jenkins, who had known Olivia since she first arrived in the territory. "What's this about?" Olivia asked, wiping flour from her hands as she came out to greet them. Harry, dressed in his best shirt and polished boots, grinned at her. "I told you I wouldn't wait a day longer than necessary to make you my wife. If you'll still have me, Olivia Blackwell, I'd like to marry you right here, right now." Tears sprang to her eyes as she looked between Harry and the smiling pastor. "Right now, but I'm not prepared. I'm covered in flour. The house is a mess." "You've never looked more beautiful," Harry assured her, taking her hands in his. "But if you want to wait, plan something proper." "No," she interrupted, suddenly certain. "No more waiting. Yes, I'll marry you today." She hurried inside to change into her Sunday dress, a simple blue cotton affair, but the nicest thing she owned. She pinned up her hair as best she could and emerged to find that Harry had moved 2 chairs to the porch, facing the setting sun. "I thought you might want to be married here," he explained, "where you waited for so long. Seems fitting that this is where your waiting ends, and our life together begins." The simple ceremony took place as the sun painted the Montana sky in shades of gold and pink, the same colors that had streaked the horizon on so many mornings as Olivia had watched and waited. Pastor Jenkins spoke of new beginnings, of God's plans sometimes taking unexpected turns. When it came time for their vows, Harry took both of Olivia's hands in his. "Olivia, I've watched you stand on this porch more times than I can count, waiting for someone who didn't know the value of what he left behind. I promise you this: I will always come home to you. Every day for the rest of our lives, you'll never have to wonder where I am or if I'm coming back." His voice broke slightly. "I'll be the one who does come back every single time." Tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks as she squeezed his hands. "Harry, you found me when I was lost in waiting, when I'd forgotten how to live in the present. You reminded me what it means to be seen, to be valued. I promise to build a life with you that's worth coming home to create a home filled with love and respect and partnership." They exchanged rings, the gold band that had been Harry's mother's now properly placed on Olivia's left hand, and a simple band Harry had purchased in town for himself. "By the power vested in me," Pastor Jenkins proclaimed, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. Miller, you may kiss your bride." Harry's kiss was tender and reverent, his arms holding Olivia as though she were the most precious thing in the world. When they parted, both were smiling through tears. "Mrs. Miller," he whispered, resting his forehead against hers. "Mr. Miller," she replied, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. After Pastor Jenkins departed with promises to announce their marriage at Sunday service, Harry and Olivia stood on the porch, watching as the last light faded from the sky and stars began to appear. "No more waiting," Harry said softly, his arm around her waist. "No more waiting," she agreed, leaning into his embrace. "Just living." That night, as husband and wife, they discovered each other in ways they had only dreamed of during their months of courtship. Harry's touch was gentle yet passionate, his reverence for her body making Olivia feel treasured in ways she'd never known. In his arms, she found not just pleasure but a profound sense of coming home to herself, to him, to the life they would build together. As autumn deepened across the Montana territory, the newlyweds settled into a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. They worked side by side during the day preparing for winter, combining their livestock, making plans for spring plantings. At night, they shared meals and conversation by the fire before retiring to their bedroom, where they continued to discover the joys of married life. "I was thinking," Harry said one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. It had become their favorite place to end the day, the very spot where Olivia had spent so many mornings waiting. Now, instead of looking eastward in hope and disappointment, she sat facing west with Harry beside her, watching each day's beautiful conclusion. "A dangerous pastime," she teased, nestled against his side. He chuckled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I was thinking we should expand the house come spring, add a proper dining room, maybe another bedroom or two." Olivia glanced up at him. "Another bedroom or two." "Are you planning on taking in boarders, Mr. Miller?" His expression grew serious, though his eyes remained soft. "I was thinking more along the lines of children, Mrs. Miller, if that's something you want." Her heart swelled at the thought. During her marriage to Thomas, they had tried for children but none had come. She'd wondered if perhaps she couldn't have them, a painful possibility she'd eventually accepted. "I would like that," she admitted, "though I don't know if it's possible for me, Thomas and I." "It will happen when it's meant to," Harry assured her, drawing her closer. "And if it doesn't, we'll find other ways to fill our home with love." As winter descended once more, blanketing their homestead in pristine white, Olivia and Harry found themselves cozily ensconced in the home they now shared. The cold months that had once seemed so lonely to Olivia were now filled with warmth and companionship. They read to each other by firelight, played cards at the kitchen table, and spent long evenings planning the future of their ranch. It was during a fierce January blizzard, when the wind howled like a wounded animal and snow piled against the windows, that Olivia first suspected their family might be expanding sooner than expected. The nausea had started a week earlier, subtle at first but growing more insistent each morning. "Harry," she said quietly as they lay in bed, listening to the storm rage outside, "I think I might be with child." In the dim light of the single candle burning on the bedside table, she saw his eyes widen, then fill with such hope and joy that it took her breath away. "Are you sure?" he whispered, propping himself up on one elbow to look at her. "Not entirely," she admitted, "but I'm late and I've been feeling ill in the mornings. My mother always said those were the first signs." Harry's hand moved to rest gently on her still flat stomach, his touch reverent. "A baby," he breathed, voice filled with wonder. "Our baby." As February turned to March and the first hints of spring began to emerge, there was no longer any doubt. Olivia's condition became more apparent each day, both in the gentle rounding of her belly and in the glow that seemed to emanate from within her. Harry was attentive to the point of fussing, something that both touched and occasionally exasperated Olivia. He took on more of the heavy chores, insisted she rest frequently, and spent evenings reading aloud from the few medical books they owned about pregnancy and childbirth. "You know, I'm not made of porcelain," Olivia reminded him one afternoon as he tried to prevent her from carrying a basket of eggs from the henhouse. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time, many while working far harder than I am." "I know," Harry admitted sheepishly. "I just want to take care of you both." She softened, setting down the basket to cup his cheek. "And you are, but I'll go mad if you don't let me do something useful around here." They compromised. Olivia continued with the lighter chores while Harry handled the more strenuous work. Together, they prepared for both the spring planting and the autumn arrival of their child. As Olivia's pregnancy progressed, they began turning the small room adjacent to their bedroom into a nursery. Harry crafted a cradle from pine wood, carving intricate designs along the edges. Olivia sewed tiny garments and blankets in the evenings, each stitch filled with anticipation and love. "What shall we name him?" Harry asked one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting on the swell of her stomach where their child occasionally kicked and rolled. "Him." Olivia questioned with a smile. "Are you so certain it's a boy?" "Just a feeling," Harry replied. "Though a daughter would be just as wonderful. A little girl with your eyes and spirit would be a blessing beyond measure." They discussed names for hours, debating family traditions and meaningful choices. For a boy, they settled on William Henry, after both their fathers. For a girl, they chose Elizabeth Grace, honoring Harry's mother and Olivia's grandmother. Summer passed in a blend of ranch work and preparation. Their vegetable garden thrived, providing plenty to preserve for winter. The cattle grew fat on the rich grass, promising good prices at the autumn market. And as August turned to September, Olivia's time grew near. It was on a crisp October morning, just as dawn broke over the eastern horizon, that Olivia woke Harry with a hand on his shoulder. "It's time," she said simply, her face calm despite the pain evident in her eyes. Harry was instantly alert, helping her through the early stages of labor as they'd planned. He sent one of the young ranch hands they'd hired to fetch the midwife from town, then set about making Olivia as comfortable as possible. The labor was long and difficult. For 16 hours, Olivia fought through waves of pain unlike anything she'd experienced before. Harry remained by her side throughout, wiping her brow, offering water and whispering words of encouragement even as fear threatened to overwhelm him. "You're the strongest person I know," he told her as another contraction gripped her. "You can do this, Liv. Our baby is almost here." The midwife, a stern but capable woman named Mrs. Peterson, directed them both with firm efficiency. As evening fell, she announced that it was time for Olivia to push. "I see the head," Mrs. Peterson announced after what felt like an eternity. "One more good push, Mrs. Miller." With a final, tremendous effort, Olivia brought their child into the world. The baby's cry filled the room strong, indignant, and perfect. "You have a daughter," Mrs. Peterson announced, quickly cleaning and wrapping the infant before placing her in Olivia's waiting arms. Elizabeth Grace Miller had her mother's dark hair and her father's green eyes. Her tiny fists waved in the air as she settled against Olivia's chest, her cries subsiding to soft coos. "She's perfect," Harry whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face as he gazed at his wife and daughter. "You're both perfect." Olivia looked up at him, exhausted but radiant. "We did it," she murmured. "She's here." As Mrs. Peterson busied herself with the afterbirth and cleaning up, Harry perched carefully on the edge of the bed, one arm around Olivia's shoulders, the other hand gently touching their daughter's downy head. "Hello, Elizabeth," he said softly. "We've been waiting for you." The first weeks with Elizabeth were a blur of sleepless nights, feeding schedules, and a love so fierce it took Olivia's breath away. Harry proved to be a devoted father, walking the floor with their fussy daughter in the middle of the night, changing cloths without complaint, and gazing at her with such adoration that it made Olivia's heart swell. As autumn deepened into winter, the small family settled into their new reality. The homestead that had once felt so empty to Olivia now overflowed with life and purpose. The porch where she had spent countless mornings waiting became the place where she often sat with Elizabeth, telling her daughter stories as they watched Harry work with the horses or mend fences. On Christmas morning, with snow falling gently outside and Elizabeth sleeping peacefully in her cradle, Harry presented Olivia with a small wooden box. "What's this?" she asked, accepting the gift with curiosity. "Open it," he encouraged, sitting beside her near the fireplace. Inside, nestled on a bed of soft cloth, was a delicate silver locket. When Olivia opened it, she found a tiny portrait of the three of them, a photograph taken when Elizabeth was just 2 weeks old. "It's beautiful," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Look at the back," Harry urged. Engraved on the reverse side of the locket were the words, "No more waiting, just living. With all my love, H." Olivia looked up at her husband, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "I love you, Harry Miller." "And I love you, Olivia Miller," he replied, leaning in to kiss her softly. More with each passing day. As winter gave way to spring, and spring to summer, their family and ranch thrived. Harry expanded the house as promised, adding not just one additional bedroom but 2, along with a proper dining room large enough to host their growing circle of friends and neighbors. Elizabeth grew from a newborn to an active infant, her personality emerging curious, determined, and quick to smile, especially at her adoring father. She had Harry wrapped around her tiny finger from the first moment, a fact that amused Olivia to no end. "You're going to spoil her," Olivia observed one afternoon as Harry crafted a tiny rocking horse, far too advanced for their 7-month-old daughter. "Probably," he admitted with a grin, "but she'll grow into it." By Elizabeth's first birthday in October of 1878, the transformation of the Blackwell homestead, now the Miller Ranch, was remarkable. The house was expanded, the barn rebuilt, the herd nearly tripled in size. Harry had proven himself not just a loving husband and father, but a skilled rancher with a head for business. On the evening of Elizabeth's birthday, after a small celebration with neighbors and friends, Harry and Olivia sat on their porch as they did most evenings, their daughter sleeping soundly inside. "You ever think about it?" Harry asked, his arm around Olivia's shoulders as they watched the stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Think about what? How different things might have been. If Thomas had come back, if you hadn't waited on this porch every morning." Olivia considered his question, nestling closer into his embrace. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but not with regret. Those mornings of waiting led me to you, to us, to Elizabeth. I wouldn't change a moment of it." Harry pressed a kiss to her temple. "Nor would I. Though I still think Thomas Blackwell was the biggest fool west of the Mississippi." Olivia laughed softly. "His loss was definitely my gain. And mine," Harry added, turning to face her more fully. "I have something to tell you." The serious note in his voice made Olivia sit up straighter. "What is it?" A slow smile spread across his face. "I've bought the Montgomery spread. Old man Montgomery is moving back east to live with his daughter, and he offered me first chance at it. The papers were signed yesterday." Olivia gasped. The Montgomery Ranch was the largest in the county, with prime grazing land and water rights that would secure their future for generations. "Harry, how did you manage it?" "The cattle sales were better than expected, and I've been saving. Montgomery gave me a fair price, knowing we'd care for the land the way he has." Harry's eyes shone with pride and excitement. "We're building something real here, Liv, something that will last." Olivia threw her arms around his neck, overwhelmed with joy and gratitude for the life they'd created together. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered against his ear. "Of us." Later that night, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Olivia had news of her own to share. "Harry," she said softly, taking his hand and placing it on her stomach, "I think Elizabeth might be getting a brother or sister come spring." His sharp intake of breath was followed by a kiss so tender it brought tears to her eyes. "Really?" he asked, voice thick with emotion. "Really," she confirmed. Mrs. Peterson confirmed it yesterday. We should expect an addition around April. Harry gathered her close, his hand still resting protectively over their second child. I never thought I could be this happy, he confessed, voice hushed in the darkness. Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and find it was all a dream. Not a dream, Olivia assured him, pressing a kiss to his chest, right above his heart. Just the life we've built together. No more waiting, he murmured, echoing the promise that had become their mantra. Just living, she completed, secure in his arms and in the knowledge that she had found everything she'd ever wanted, not in the man who never returned, but in the cowboy who had promised to be the one who did. And as they drifted to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms with their daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room and another child growing beneath Olivia's heart, the porch where she had once waited stood empty under the Montana stars, no longer a place of vigil, but simply the entrance to a home filled with love, laughter, and the fulfilled promise of a life well lived together.